Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Weekly Feedback. I'm your host, Caveman PRDR. Today we're going to be taking a look at a small handful of things. We're going to be looking at the 511 TWAB, we'll be looking at the exotic armor tuning preview, and we'll also be looking at a Destiny 2 team glitch fix, and we'll be talking about a little bit of that toward the end, but we're going to lead off with the weekly TWAB. So, Guardian Games Week 2, Titans have kind of taken the first place, second place Warlocks, third place in Hunter for Hunters, and this was as of this most previous Thursday. Top 4 teams raised money for the Bungie Foundation, and then there's points scored. Below that is the Bungie Game Rewards. And below that in the TWAB is the Season of the Deep teaser trailer preview. That will be in the TWAB for y'all to take a look at if you haven't already looked at it. Below that is the announcement for the ornaments and for the upcoming seasonal ritual weapon, which is the Last Right aggressive frame scout rifle. It is a Tex Mechanica kinetic aggressive scout, so it's going to be a kinetic slot version of long arm. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I don't see long arm play very often. We'll see what they decide to do with it. I'm going to be interested in getting it and seeing what the perks on it are going to be. There will be that. Under the Sea, basically a picture of the armor set for the Guardians. This for season 21, which for the most part, I think looks pretty good. And then below that is a screenshot, I assume, of underwater gameplay for this upcoming season. We may be going underwater. And there may be water-based gameplay. Don't really know. Don't know if we'll actually be able to swim or not, but it looks like we're a character that is standing in water from this screen, or at least getting a picture of what appears to be this underwater base. Guild that title Guardian, which is located below that. Final weeks of the season, and you know what that means. Time to remind you to finish up your season pass, wrap up weekly challenges, and get your Destiny on to finalize your cutscene attire. Social Team just yelled from the other room not to forget to check the engram tracker in your inventory. Seasonal vendor engrams you need to pick up. So yeah, be sure to pick up those seasonal engrams. Basically dismantle those for legendary shards. I know we've been collecting those pretty quick. Below that is the dungeon announcement. Get your Guardians ready for the next adventure. The new redacted dungeon opens at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday, May 26th. When Spire of the Watcher released, it was basically contacting Destiny servers so much that they had to disable the API for the weekend and disable all third-party apps. So remember the day that Spire of the Watcher released, them was completely unavailable at least until Monday's daily reset, if not until the weekly reset. Our eye-opening experience for someone who's been using DIM a lot. At the current time, we didn't have the loadout system in. We just had DIM, and it was pretty opening to go back in there and mainly rely on the vault. So Eververse recommendations have arrived, and so I guess there's a recommended page for the Eververse now listed below. Below that is the player support team. Hotfix 7.0.5.3 patch notes listed. And below that are known issues. Below that is the movie of the week. Below that is artist of the week. And that would be it for this week at Bungie. I will leave a link to the TWAB down below. And now we're going to get on to part of the meat of the video, which is the Season 21 Exotic Armor Tuning Preview. 2 primary goals we settled on for this bounce pass: identify underused armor pieces and revamp them to increase their appeal, tune down outlier armor pieces that are probably too powerful. So starting off, we're going with Hunter's Sealed Ahamkar Grasps. This exotic will now reload the magazine of all your weapons when you defeat a target with your powered melee, and for 5 seconds after dealing melee damage, you gain increased movement speed and jump height. I don't know how to feel about this one just yet. Defeating a target with your powered melee, I think this one would obviously be a choice to use on Solar for Hunter. Get a kill with a throwing knife, and activate sealed Ahamkar's grasps. Maybe you could make an argument for it on Arc as well because of the melee range increase you get when you're using, I believe, lethal current. I think you get an increase in melee lunge after you dodge roll. So it could be a play on Arc. Potentially one on Void as well. I don't usually use the throwable melee for a kill, but it can happen. But I would be leaning towards Solar first and then maybe Arc. Personally, I haven't liked the exotic. In my opinion, this isn't significant enough of a change to make me want to use it. Athos's Embrace. Gain additional strength while the exotic's weighted knife damage bonus is active. This is kind of a confusing buff to me because Athros's, if you haven't used it, it's busted. Athros's is absolutely busted. It is a very low-key exotic, and they kind of just gave it an out-of-nowhere buff. Granted, the additional strength while the damage bonus is active is kind of, it's a little bit of an odd specific place because I don't think the additional strength is just going to have a constant uptime. It's only going to be like an allotted window. I don't know how to feel about it, but I know that the exotic's already really good. It's just underused. So, Oathkeeper, when fully drawn, bows gain a bonus to damage against combatants that increases as you hold the draw, but deactivates after a few seconds. Actually, I think this is just going to be in a functional... This is going to be an outright functional rework. So, they are taking away holding the bow at full draw and replacing it with this. So, I guess it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Hopefully there's no significant damage bonuses in PvP for it. If there is, I can somehow see even more playtime with Oathkeepers and Ley Monarch being paired together. I know I've probably just triggered quite a few people saying that, but hopefully the damage bonus isn't significant for Oathkeeper in PvP. Raju's Harness. When deactivating your Arc Staff Super, you create a blinding explosion that temporarily increases your arc weapon damage. However, blocking with Whirlwind Guard will no longer consume energy more slowly. So they're reworking Raju's Harness. I'm guessing this is supposed to give it more PvE viability. And I don't know how to feel about using Raju's Harness in PvE. Like, the whole point is to have your super and to use your super in the game regardless. So whenever the Arc Super is deactivated, you create a blinding explosion. So I'm guessing the blinding explosion is going to counter Unstoppable. So I guess that's a decent additional functionality. And you get an increase to arc weapon damage, so that could be good whenever using weapons like Grand Overture. Or I personally use Ikelos, and then I use, like, I don't know, I've used Storm Chaser. It's been a while since I've used Storm Chaser, but I think it would be good to power up that kind of stuff in PvE. See how that works in PvP. Hopefully the damage bonus isn't that great, but I don't like the idea of popping the super just to not use the super. Radiant Dance Machines. Kills while you free dodge is active. Extend the duration of free dodging. No longer deactivates when you get too far away from enemies. Deactivates after using Suspending Slam. Stompies. Removed airborne effectiveness penalties. You only gain increased sprint, slide distance, and improved jumping while your dodge energy is full. So, in my opinion, this is a good change for Stompies. The movement that was given when Stompies is on is entirely too much additional movement for free, even with the difference between it from tier 10 Mobile and tier 10 with Stompies. The difference in ability for movement is simply too much just for only putting on an exotic. There needed to be a cost to this. The cost before, in my opinion, was not the appropriate cost for airborne effectiveness. I think for a exotic that needed that relied a lot on aerial gameplay, putting an airborne effectiveness penalty was not the move or was not the appropriate nerf that it needed. And I think nerfing it by balancing how you approach the gameplay and the build craft to it, I think tying that to the dodgeability cooldown is actually going to be the appropriate way to go. Now, I will say this. Their reasoning for it was horrific. It was absolutely terrible, and I'll go over that now. We want Stompies to have a strong fantasy, but permanent uptime for potent movement benefits that make targeting hunters in PvP very difficult on controller ends up making it too automatic of a choice, even with the prior AE changes. We're undoing that change, but tackling the uptime to try and make it so you can use it to ambush or escape from an engagement, but not both. Their reasoning that basically they're basically using the reasoning that it's too hard for controller players to track. And in cases where let's say I'm approaching a doorway and there's a hunter on the other side of the doorway with Stompies. Let's say I approach the doorway and I just want to run shoddy or whatever. And let's say they have the tier 10 mobile, they have the Stompies on, they jump high above the door and they kill me. Whatever. Me as a controller player, yes, that sucks, but you know what? That's my fault for pushing. The appropriate way to play that is just a peek shoot. Don't go challenging into a situation you don't necessarily see. While I understand especially on lower sensitivities, it's very, very hard on controller to actually track someone that is flying directly in the air above you. That is unquestionably true. That is true. That is absolutely true. It's hard to do that at times. But let's not sit here and pretend that this is more oppressive than the Bastion Overshield that you get on Void Titan, the Juggernaut Overshield you get on Arc Titan, things that are more oppressive, every single healing nade on all three subclasses, things that are also oppressive. Technically, if you need to nerf Stompies, then you either need to nerf or get rid of the following for PvP, which includes Heat Rises for Warlock and Line Rampants for Titan. It's only fair if you're going to do that kind of nerf to Stompies, then you need to do that kind of nerf to these other things for these other classes. You gotta be consistent. You can't just do this to one class and then think that it's going to be fine and dandy for it to pass. That's not going to fly. So I agree that the Stompies nerf needed to change and it needed to be something else, but their reasoning for it was complete horseshit. And now realistically, you're not going to expect Bungie to nerf these other things that are either also a problem, like I mentioned earlier, like the free overshields, the free healing, or the other ways you can use movement the exact same way you can use it on Stompies. And the first few things that I mentioned, the healing and the overshield, those have desperately needed to be nerfed. People have been making more of an outcry to nerf those things even harder than requesting Stompies to be nerfed. Now, don't get me wrong, Stompies needed to be nerfed. They have been tops for Hunter, for used exotics in PvP for probably the last 3 years now. The main two exotics I can think of that contested Stompies for usage rates in high-end PvP were Omnioculus and Gear Falcons. And both of those have been nerfed appropriately or reworked appropriately. And Stompies has its turn right now. And in my opinion, Stompies is not a big offender in PvP compared to some of these other things I've listed. So, as someone who claims to be a Titan main, who plays on controller, I'm going to knock you down a little bit for putting a little bit of feedback against Bungie for this change, but I'm gonna extend my hand and lift you back up because I agree that their reasoning for it is bullshit. We're gonna have that said right there. And for them to stay consistent, they need to do these other things that I said. But we all know they're not gonna do all that stuff. So it's just kind of unfortunate that it was their time to rework the nerf to this. But with that being said, the condition to actually have dodge back with Gambler's Dodge, you can get your tier 10 mobility on Gambler's Dodge. You can easily get your dodge roll back within 25 seconds. And on Marksman's Dodge, you can probably get it easily back within 20 seconds. So I don't want to hear shit about the nerf being unfair in terms of the actual cost on how to get the enhanced movement itself. I don't want to hear that shit. But their reasoning for it, and then not doing action to other things that needed to be nerfed worse, or needed to have been put into action before, that I will absolutely agree. So that is what I have to say about Stompies. That's what I've had to say about Stompies, and now we're going to move on to Mask of Bacchus. Change to use a tier 4 non-stacking weapon damage bonus, which behaves the same as a non-stacking damage bonuses provided by Surge mods. Damage bonus increase in PvE from 10% to 25% now grants a 6% bonus weapon damage in PvP. No longer stacks with Surge leg armor mods, but provides a larger bonus that can be achieved with 3 such mods equipped. So the arc damage won't stack with Surge mods that you get from Mask of Bacchus, but you can still get a damage bonus from it regardless. Now we're going to move on to Titan's Point Contact Brace. Lightning Strikes now jolt targets. Increased PV damage per lightning bolt from 50 to 200 being amplified now increases the damage of lightning strikes by 50% instead of extending their range. Now with the addition of Jolt on a Point Contact Cannon Brace, this adds anti-champion functionality to overload champions. So I think that's interesting. I need to see a little bit more about how the damage actually works in PvE for it to really be effective to replace something like Heart of Inmost Light. I don't necessarily see that happening right this second, but we'll see how that goes. No backup plans. Complete rework, replacing the old functionality entirely. This is a complete rework, replacing the old functionality entirely. Now provides a moderate benefit to AE and reload speed of shotties. While you have a Void Overshield, shotties deal additional damage, and Shotgun Final Blows refresh your Overshield while using a Void subclass. Rapid Shotgun Final Blows are defeating a powerful enemy with a Void, or defeating a powerful enemy with a shotgun grants you a Void Overshield and kicks off your health regen. Second Chance. Shield Throw melee now weakens enemies. Stunning a barrier champion with your shield throw melee grants a single full melee charge. Stronghold. Replaced the healing from blocking shots precisely with significant damage reduction. 50% PvE, 10% PvP while blocking with a sword. When you stop blocking, gain ×2 restoration with a duration that increases based on the number of shots you've blocked. Eternal Warrior, rapid takedowns with an arc weapon grant escalating bonus to arc weapon damage using the same non-stacking damage bonuses used by Surge mods. This can go all the way up to tier 4. Granting a damage bonus of 25% PvE and 6% PvP, providing a larger bonus that can be achieved with 3 Surge mods equipped. While at the tier 4, damage bonus arc kills refresh the bonus duration. After your Fist of Havoc super ends, you gain the tier 4 bonus. So I think Eternal Warrior may actually become a play in PvE if you really like doing damage with an arc primary. Example, Ikelos SMG. This could actually be a potentially viable option. Because just think about it, 25% damage boost in PvE at a lot of the time when you're using the Ikelos SMG. Or when you're using chain reaction forbearance, if you're using it for ad clear, if you're using salvage or salvo, or if you use ad clear heavy weapons like the swarm. I don't know, just spitballing. I think there may potentially be a play for PvE Eternal Warrior, but moving along, Carefree Sworn, solar damage now scorches targets. They kind of just threw verbiage on there. You know what? Sure, whatever. Why not? Path of Burning Steps. I think this is technically a nerf because times 3 Firewalker did quite a bit in PvP and PvE. And now they've just changed it to this non-stacking surge mod. So can go all the way up to tier 4 damage bonus, granting a total of 25% PvE and 6% PvP, providing a larger bonus that can be achieved with 3 surge mods equipped, while at the tier 4 damage bonus, solar kills refresh the bonus duration. Becoming encased immediately grants you the tier 4 damage bonus. I guess this makes the Firewalker damage bonus more consistent and maybe refreshable. I think it's an interesting play. That they took away the top end damage that you could get from Path of Burning Steps originally, but made it to where you can be more consistent with uptime and damage. I think this could potentially make it more PvP viable. I would personally use things like Igneous Hammer, the BXR, two of my personal favorite PvP solar weapons. So I will be kind of interested to see how it plays with those. Now, the one we've been waiting for on Titan, Dune Marchers. Reduce the range of the chain damage from 20 meters to 12 meters and PvP damage from 85 to 50. Good nerf. These needed to be nerfed. Dune Marchers has been sitting on top for Titan for a good while now. The 8-meter reduction from the chain damage is going to be a really good change. Punishes people less for being grouped up together, and as well as the 35% reduction in damage. It's only going to be a quarter of your health now instead of the majority of half your health. Well, I guess it depends on how your tier resilience is. But anyway, 50% or 50 damage only out of maybe like 185 at the minimum. I can't quite remember what tier 0 resil is, but 50 damage out of 185 at tier 0 resil. I think that's the number. Correct me if I'm wrong down below. Decreasing it down to 50 is a very good change. So, yeah. Warlocks, Vesper of Radius. Your Rift emits an arc shockwave every 5 seconds that deals damage, 200 in PvE and 70 in PvP. Enemies defeated by these shockwaves explode for an additional 100 damage, and if you have an arc subclass equipped, also blinds enemies. So Vesper of Radius probably actually has a play in PvE. Now, if you're using it with an arc subclass, you can blind nearby enemies. That gives anti-champion functionality against unstoppables. And it can be useful in plays such as, potentially useful in plays such as higher end content where you're less likely to be running around so much and you can stay in your rift. PvP, I still don't see this being viable. I will say this. If you have a strategy as a team where you want to just have a Warlock play around the zone for rounds of trials and kind of into that passive gameplay, it could be a potential play for that Warlock to use Vesper of Radius, and when the zone is at an appropriate timer, you have them already on Vesper of Radius and use it to start capping the point. Because when people challenge you, you get the 5-second intervals of the random 70 damage. If someone pushes you and they happen to hit on that interval of damage, that's a free 70 damage that they're getting. And all you have to do is follow up melee, or like you get a bunch of chunk damage off of a shoddy, and it'll make the kill much easier. So I think Vesper of Radius has like one potential play in PvP, but has much more use in PvE. Potential use. Chromatic Fire, increase the radius and damage of explosions created by precision kinetic takedowns. Explosions also apply a status to affect targets by it, damaged by it, depending on which subclass you have equipped. Blind Arc, Scorch Solar, Slow Stasis, Sever Strand, and Weaken Void. Weaken is going to be decent in general to weaken enemies. Chromatic Fire, watch out for this in PvE, especially with Ad Clear for Void. Be on the lookout for this. This may be a really good play. Dawn Course, Daybreak's projectiles damage bonus has been increased and is no longer reliant on the enemy being scorched. I think the Daybreak damage still needs to be increased at base, and then this also needs to do a bit more damage, but we are where we are with that. Sanguine Alchemy. Standing in a rift gains a non-stacking bonus to weapon damage matching your subclass damage type. This damage bonus is the equivalent of 2 Surge Leg mods, 17% PvE and 4.5% PvP. Claws of Ahamkara. Powered melee kills create an orb of power. When heavy-handed mods are equipped, it increases the potency of the orb spawned. No more than one can be spawned per enemy takedown. This one is a little bit of a odd change for claws, in my opinion, but we have that. Mantle of Battle Harmony, weapon bonus damage changed to tier 4 when super is fully charged. Increased damage bonus in PvE from 20 to 25%, reducing the damage bonus from 15 to 6% PvP. No longer stacks with Surge Leg Armor mods, but provides a large bonus that can be achieved with 3 such mods equipped. Damage bonus applies to weapons that match your subclass damage type, and now stacking with Empowering Rift and other damage bonuses. Extended base duration of this bonus from 6 seconds to 10 seconds in PvE and 3 seconds to 5 seconds in PvP. So I do believe with this damage nerf from Mantle of Battle Harmony, I don't think you're going to be able to make a really big change in damage bonus. Affiniate Aspects, remove the extended melee range. This is good. We need, ideally, the servers just are not playing or running well enough to really appropriately handle lunge at every opportunity that it comes in a game or in a match of PvP. So, in my opinion, in PvP, I think it would be okay if we removed melee lunge range. Lunge range. Not to be confused with powered melee distance, but I think we need to consider removing that potentially. Or at least universally making anything that gives an extended melee lunge, make it universally the same distance. Because I know some of these are varied. Promethean Spur grants Rift Energy for any solar weapon takedown, with more energy granted for solar weapon takedowns while standing in a rift. Also, you now have to be standing in a rift when you get a final blow for the exotic to consume your class ability energy and create a rift at the target's location. Starfire Protocol, this is the big nerf. And to all the Warlocks who have complained about this, sucks to suck. You cannot have a build that has the lowest skill floor with the highest reward for DPS in PvE and have that exact same production for ad clear. So what they have done is changed it to where they basically just said, all right, Starfire Protocol, you can be able to do one of these, but you can't do them both. And they have changed it in such a way where it's still going to be passable with ad clear, but single target DPS or DPS for bosses, that's gone. And this was a very good and appropriate nerf, in my opinion. You can let me know if anything I've said has rattled you at all. If anything I've said that has bothered you. regarding changes to your favorite exotics, let me know in the comments down below if you've had any changes about these. And speaking of changes that would upset you, we're going to save the best one for last, which is right here, Destiny 2 team. We would like to give some extra context on the weapon swap delay change. This shotgun exploit wasn't the only issue we were seeing, and to safely fix the underlying problem, we needed to introduce a global firing delay when swapping weapons via the inventory screen. Due to the network differences across players and environments, we couldn't guarantee the shortest possible delay would address the exploit. After closely observing the current behavior in the live game, we have enough information to dial this in more precisely and plan to reduce the weapon swap delay to about 1 second shortly after Season 21's launch later this month. So this is in response to the glitch that has appeared recently where you can do massive amounts of damage with Fourth Horseman after swapping to it from a slug shotgun. Destiny, or Bungie, has decided to give a shot delay, a 2-second shot delay, while swapping to any weapon regardless of whatever slot. And in my opinion, this was a very, very, very bad fix for their change. Or this was a very, very bad temporary fix for their change. Like, I don't usually swap weapons in PvP that much. Or if I do, it's usually in between rounds, not so much in between. Or it's in between lives, not so much while I'm on a life. But in PvE, if I need to swap a weapon out quickly, and this kind of stuff occurs, the delay just shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there, period. This was a very bad change. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to fix the Fourth Horseman. Really, realistically, all they had to do was just disable Fourth Horseman until they fixed it. Introducing this change to fix that was a very bad call. All they had to do was disable Fourth Horseman until they could figure out what was going on. Either that, or there was another issue that we don't really know about, and this is why they chose that change, because this change can help resolve another issue. This is the main thing that doesn't really make sense to me, and this is one that all players need to be upset with Bungie about. So, with that being said, that's going to be it for today's video. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments section below. If I've said anything that's triggered you, let me know down below. I would love to see the comments. Thank you, and as always, have a good one.